Hello and welcome to this second session of the International Airport Online Summit. My name is Holly and I'm the editor of International Airport Review. I really hope you enjoyed the first session, which actually framed this session rather nicely, as one of the panelists said that digitalisation must be one of the pillars of airport strategies going forward. With that in mind, it is my pleasure to introduce you to this session on transforming and digitising airport environments, and to your moderator for this session, Matt Mullen. Matt is Passenger Experience Environment Manager at London Luton Airport. Before I hand over to Matt, I just want to remind you to submit any questions that you have for our panelists via the live discussion box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screens, and Matt will try and get through as many of them as he can. We're also running 2 polls during this session, so just wanted to make you aware of that. Head over to the polls tab and answer those, and we will discuss the results later. But for now, I'll hand over to Matt to introduce the session and the other panelists. So Matt, over to you.
Thank you, Holly, and good morning to everyone, and welcome to the panel discussion on transforming and digitising airport environments today. Really super excited to be here with our panel of experts, and as Holly mentioned, I'm your moderator for today. So without further ado, let's introduce our expert panel. First off is Tijan Sirig. So she is the Senior Director for Airports at Honeywell Building Technologies. She's passionate about making airports smarter, greener and healthier, and has 16 years experience in technology solutions for airports, so welcome. Our next panelist is Aaron Shoshana Rihanna from he's the General Manager of the Innovation Lab at Bangalore Airport. He's had various experience in all facets of IT and is deeply interested in analysing, understanding the technology impact on societal behaviour in the passenger world. So welcome. Our next panelist is our Pietro Caminiti from Rome Airport. He's the head of IT with more than 15 years experience across industries and leads the digital evolution to define IT architectures, software solutions, all to focus on efficiency and contributing to innovation and strategic initiatives. Our next panelist is Mark Swartz. He's the head of digitalization and business excellence at Zurich Airport. Previously, he's currently working at Noada International Airport, but in his time at Zurich, he introduced the world's first Google Indoor Live View enabled airport, and has led numerous projects as a senior manager for innovation and new business. And last but not least, Rashid Al-Basaidi. He is the head of ICT strategy and technology innovation at Oman Airports. He's a founding member of the Multiple Airport Innovation Forum and is focused on digital innovation for personalized passenger experience and operational excellence. Currently, he's leading the IT department at Oman and has a mandate to transform how they operate, which is fantastic. So welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and cannot wait to take our session into our next step. So we're going to now deep dive into the topics such as how airports are managing the digitization of airport environments, the challenges we've experienced, success stories, and then we'll close on a discussion how the pandemic may have changed our investment priorities and digital transformation philosophies, all to help reassure passengers that the airports are safe and clean for their next travel. Our aim today is to provide you with insight into digitizing that environment and how our experience may help you in yours. So let's jump right in. As Holly mentioned at the beginning, we've got a couple of polls. For our audience, we'll discuss these at the end and we'll put them to the panelists. But your first question of the day is which of these are your key digital transformation priorities? Touchless passenger processing, operational efficiency and innovation, or environmental, social and governance? And then the second part to that question is, what timescales are you looking to implement your digital transformation strategy? 12 months, 18 months, and 24 months. So whilst we're busy in going through our topics, please do participate in our poll. And also, if you do have any questions, please pop them in the discussion panel, and we'll be sure to throw these into the mix today as well. So let's take 2 to 3 minutes each to answer what does transformation mean to you? And let's go to Pietro. Do you want to kick us off today?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Matt, for introducing these topics. Let me just start with some lesson learned from my experience. What does it mean digital transformation? First of all, it's not a tech job. Digital transformation is a business way to transform the way we do business. Is a 300-degree action and plan that should be done to provide better service for end user. We should have this in mind, and we should have digital as an enabler for this, as not as the final target of a transformation. This is just my 2 cents. If you think right now about industry, technology is everywhere. It's everywhere. We use technology each day, each second. We are not able to do something that we are used to do 10 years ago without technology right now. So technology is something that should be used. But as each kind of transformation, if we think about barriers, the technology could be, or the technology awareness could be itself a barrier for a digital transformation. Not all the different stakeholders in the industry are on the same level of understanding, on the same level of maturity, and the common understanding of what technology can do for the passenger, but also for an internal corporate, for the operation, and for all the different stakeholders, is the second barrier that should be broken or should be adjusted in advance in order to avoid that after a long term of a long master plan, we have nothing in concrete to leverage on in terms of experience, in terms of lesson learned, in terms of passenger benefit, and so far and so on. From the benefit in a digital transformation, I think if we have in mind that passenger is the key of all of the different aspects of digital transformation, we can see that improving just 1 minute or of their time, spare time, or even improving quality of the perception of the time within the airport or within the end-to-end travel, because right now we are talking about end-to-end travel for the passenger, we are able to make them feeling better. We are able to make them feeling comfortable within the travel and within the space in the airport. And we obtain satisfaction from that passenger. That means not only operation efficiency for the way they spend in the airport or for the time they spend in the airport, but even could be an unexpected benefit coming from non-aviation revenue, coming from upstream revenue, coming from other kind of interaction that the passenger can benefit within a digital transformation provided by the airport and the different stakeholders in the industry. Last sentence is one of the most important benefits that the airport could have in a digital transformation is managing properly the data that the passenger can do directly or indirectly during the trip.
That's great. Thank you, Pietro. And yeah, you make some very key points there, especially around the end-to-end journey aspect and making sure that we kind of make sure that we cover the whole thing. We don't take just parts of it. And yeah, I think that's really a good thing to start off with. And Mark, do you have anything else to? Have you got any thoughts on this? Of you know, what does digital transformation mean to you? And any kind of discussion what Pietro raised?
Sure. So I agree with Pietro on the points that digitalization doesn't start with technology, but really technology is an enabler for strategic goals which are set in the company. And from my point of view, I've got like 2 perspectives. One from Zurich Airport, which obviously is an existing running airport. And on the other side, we've got our new Greenfield airport in India, which we're building. So there's like 2 different approaches there. Obviously, it's not a transformation in that sense in India, as we're building from scratch. And in case of Zurich Airport, I would see it as like a continuous improvement approach to it. So the transformation will basically mean we haven't done anything, or let's say, to put it in a provocative way, we haven't done anything, now we have to start doing something. And I would rather see it in that way, that it is a continuous improvement approach to acknowledging that digitalization and technology overall serves a purpose, and that purpose is to achieve the strategic goals which you have set on your roadmap. So what we actually do is we acknowledge that the transformation or even continuous improvement is a lot to do actually with the mindset of the people. So how can you get the people aligned with the mission? How can you manage basically the organization? And therefore, what we really focus on, for example, now in our Greenfield airport in India, is that before we start to talk about technology, we're talking about people, we're talking about recruiting, we're talking about which mindset do we need in an organization? What is the digital mindset? What does that mean? So for example, looking for people who are open for change, who embrace change, and who are open to challenge the status quo, and are open to try out new ways of working. Because actually, I think that is like the key part of digitalization, is to have the right people with the right mindset, who are open to understand that new technology and digitalization is going to lead to different ways of working. It's going to lead to different technologies, which you might not have had any contact with before. So you have to have an open mind, and you have to understand that change is one of the biggest parts of this journey.
That's great, thank you, Mark. And yeah, so technology and people must work must work together, and they must work for each other as well. Like, so mindset and making sure that continuous improvement is continuously improved across the airport landscape. And technology solutions play an important role of that once you've identified where you need to go. And I think Tidjane, you might have a view on how technology solutions and what that means for digital transformation in airports.
Yes, sure. So I was very happy to hear Mark and Pietro's views, because when we talk about digitization, the first things that come to mind and the first things we hear about are technology, innovation, efficiency, and cost savings. But the main driver should really be about human experience, well-being, and safety, which are critical for productivity and driving positive business outcomes. So for airports, digital transformation, as we see it, is all about evolving processes and services to deliver a better experience to passengers, staff, and all the stakeholders by adopting and implementing new technologies and integrating them with the existing ones where possible. Digital transformation also plays a vital role in creating airports of the future, connecting both airside, landside, and airtropolis, which also benefits the entire community, not just the stakeholders at airports. So digital transformation means more data, and more data means ability to measure, improve, collaborate, simulate, predict, and prevent. So the benefits of effective digital transformation go far beyond cost reduction. So for example, there have been many studies about how positive passenger experience improves non-aeronautical revenue. Pietro also mentioned this. And there are many reasons why airports should and do invest in digitization efforts, including managing limited airport capacity, mitigating labor shortage that is more poignant now that we see around the world, energy optimization to reduce carbon emission and cost, knowing that buildings account for 38% of total greenhouse gas emissions. Any improvement in this area would be a significant help to airport sustainability goals. Some of the other benefits are reducing operational costs through digital and predictive maintenance, increasing throughput by faster turnaround, making collaboration among stakeholders easier, and with real-time data sharing. And some of the barriers, but there are some barriers, and some of these are cultural and organizational readiness and acceptance, data ownership, For example, who owns passenger data and what could be shared among stakeholders, and resource constraints, including funding, people and skills, network capacity, and bandwidth. So these barriers could be the determining factors for how far digital transformation could go at an airport.
Thank you, Tijan. Yeah, I think it's you're absolutely nicely points raised by Pietro and Mark there about people, technology, data, and how it all works together to create that continuous improvement environment across the customer journey. I'd like to introduce include now the our colleague from Bangalore Airport, Innovation. I think links all of those together almost. And comes across there. So Aaron, do you want to kick us off with the innovation and what transformation means to you?
Yeah, I'll take this question in two parts. One is, while we are discussing about digital transformation post-COVID-19, but at least in the Bangalore Airport, this thought process was there even much earlier. So we follow three simple principles, especially after COVID, which is basically accept the situation, what we have today. It's a totally a different scenario which was not there just 2 years before, and adapt to the new way of working, right? So there are many new normals which has evolved during these 2 years. It could be the way the passengers thinking, the way the passenger behaves, or we as an airport operator, how would we do? So basically adapt to this new situation, new way of working, and then advance. So accept, adapt, and advance in a way where we can think in innovative way. So digital transformation for us is not always. I totally agree with all the panelists. It is not always only a link to technology, but it is the way we think as an airport, the entire employee base of the airport. So basically, we are also looking in fostering the innovation culture across the organization. So from various quarters of the organization, there could be different thought process which comes into, which will lead us to work in a different way than what we were working. So I totally agree that there is no enterprise architecture without having a business architecture, right? So you couldn't think about just a digital transformation for the sake of there is some technology over there, but at the end of the day, how does it very well gel with our principles, our passenger requirement, etc.? That becomes more key. So all we do, we always focus on accepting, adapting to this new situation and advancing. So the digital transformation is purely focused on these three core principles for us.
Yes, I think that might be a new mantra in life for me, accept, adjust, and adapt. That sounds very, very good there, Aaron. Thank you so much. And I think you summarized the point around mindset and changing people's culture and approach to transformation as a critical aspect of that. And I think that leads nicely into Rashid. Rashid, have you got any thoughts on this? And why would we invest, and what does digital transformation mean to you?
Yeah, I couldn't agree, to be honest, more with the panelists. However, when it comes to digital transformation, I look at it as a cultural change, as a major cultural change, and how we could basically leverage from the technology to enhance our operational excellence, to have a better customer experience, business sustainability, and basically, how we could utilize the data to have, to have more insights to better serve our passengers and our customers as well. And not to forget as well, I mean, when it comes to digital transformation, it is very important that we work closely with our stakeholders. So we as an airport, we have many key stakeholders. Anything that we implement or we would want to implement in the context of technology, it definitely impacts those stakeholders. So it is very vital and it's very important that we, have our stakeholders on board. We are on the same page. We have the same, thought process in order to ensure, the success and the sustainability of the transformation. I mean, I always say digital or transformation is basically a journey and it's not a destination. It's something that you start, or you kick off, but it never stops.
That's great. Thank you so much for that, Rashid. And yeah, I would agree with you from my own experience as well. It literally never stops, does it? So it's it's that operational excellence and maintaining it. And yeah, I think it's an interesting point. And one of our audiences actually has come back around the technology solution and kind of security and safety aspect of digital transformation. And a question to everyone, but I think it's actually in response to Tijan's point around safety and productivity. Do we see an impact on IoT sensors and systems on transforming airports when it comes to security and productivity?
I'm sorry, is the question, do we have an impact? Was that the question?
Yeah, so do you see an impact on IoT sensors and systems when it comes to security and productivity at airports?
Yes, definitely. That is something that as the technology becomes available, it's the IoT sensors and the bandwidth availability with 5G. We are seeing that, we can use the sensors to gauge the occupant levels at airports and gather the data and pass it to the right systems for, to improve safety, security, and provide all that information into a command center for actions to be taken. So that's absolutely one of the enabling technologies right now.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I think it raises an interesting point around technology. And when you think about IoT sensors and systems and transforming airports, what comes to mind for me is obviously successes and failures. And I think it would be really, really good to hear some of the success stories from our panelists today, and how, about how successful digitalization projects, of any pain points, what's worked well, what hasn't. And Tijan, why don't you kick us off with what success looks like for you in digitizing airport environments?
Sure. So for technology providers like us, it is important to remember that each airport is unique. And as a result, their digital transformation needs, priorities, and journey are also different. For that reason, partnering with the right technology companies to develop and execute a digital transformation strategy is more important than the individual technology solutions and their capabilities. Also, different airports are at different maturity level in terms of digitization and/or different stages of their journey. So the success may look different for each airport, but the same enablers are available to everyone. So increasing level of data from smart infrastructure, IoT sensors, as we just mentioned, and mission critical systems over 5G enabled bandwidth offer great potential for predictive analytics. And as Mark mentioned before, it doesn't have to be done at one go. It is a continuous improvement, it is transformation, and it is a journey. And predictive, so this data is feeding into enabling predictive analytics and require a forward-thinking strategy to future-proof airports' investments in digital transformation. Also at a time, as we all know, when the industry is facing significant financial constraints, one of the main considerations should be leveraging the existing infrastructure at airports. For example, applying augmented vision and video analytics to data from existing CCTV cameras. Every airports have those CCTV cameras. During the pandemic, one of the examples is that we have worked with an international US hub to leverage the output from the CCTV cameras to help the airport manage passenger flow and crowding issues. The same solution now will help as the passenger volumes increase and the airport capacity will be challenged to manage the passenger flow. So the solutions when we work with airports should not be a throwaway, but they should be building blocks for their future strategy. So another example is another international US hub to integrate their building systems with a controls platform that improve the indoor air quality, filtration and sanitization, And the airport used the real-time real-time dashboards to communicate relevant indoor air quality information to restore passenger confidence. Another example is an international hub in Middle East, where we worked with the airport operator for energy optimization based on occupancy level by integrating with their AODB system and flight scheduling to ensure that heating, cooling, and lighting were adjusted based on occupancy numbers that led to double-digit reduction in energy consumption. This could also be achieved.
Go on. I was just going to say that sounds like wow. It's so many projects. I think you've been busier than I have in the past couple of years. But I think you raised some really interesting points there around IoT, smart sensors, augmented reality, and what I'm finding in the industry at the moment. You mentioned about resource constraints and generally finding things quite tough at the moment across the aviation landscape. Is partnerships, partnerships with other entities, with other organizations. And I know one of our panelists has a perfect example of partnerships and augmented reality. So Mark, why don't you update us on one of the world's first last year?
Sure, happy to do so. It is most definitely a very exciting project, and I think it's a good example of how we actually don't start off with technology, but actually really start off with an overall strategy and a clear business challenge, which then leads to innovation or leads to digitalization, or in that case, to a great partnership with Google. So to just give a little bit of context, what we did there, we really started off with identifying a business challenge. And I think that can be best, the best way to look at it is actually, if you see our new purpose, our new purpose claim, which we have defined at Zurich Airport, that is, we connect people and places, creating positive experiences. Now, how do we do that? That is the challenge which we had back 3 years ago, in terms of how can we make sure that people at the airport are finding what they're looking for. I'm not really just talking about primary navigation like check-in and gate. That is pretty easy. The challenge starts off if you're looking for a certain product or a certain service, a certain store. On which level is it? And of course, we have got a lot of plans and maps throughout the airport, but it's still something which is quite difficult for a lot of people. So with that challenge in mind, we sat together with our colleagues from Google and started to talk about how could we solve that issue? How could we solve the problem of people wanting to buy maybe a certain product in a certain store, but just not finding it? And as we all know, you've got limited time at an airport. And if you don't find what you're looking for, first of all, you're going to be stressed, or you're going to be pretty unhappy that you didn't find it. And we lost revenue. So how can we create a great experience there and make sure that we can increase revenue? And the idea we came up with is to team up with Google, with the department which is leading in augmented reality, and create an augmented reality experience in Google Maps, which makes wayfinding as easy as it ever has been. So that is what we actually started off with. It was quite a long process, 3 years in the making. But now you can open up Google Maps at Zurich Airport. You can type in a certain store, and it's going to lead you directly to that store using augmented reality. So you flip your phone, and then you can see the real world, and you can see augmented reality signs on the screen which show you which direction you have to go and on which level the shop is going to be which you're looking for, and how long it's going to take to get there. And obviously, and that's quite important as well, in the language which you speak.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a perfect excuse to go to Zurich Airport and test out from a geek to another geek perhaps. But yeah, that sounds exciting and well worth it. I think from a customer point of view, especially having something on your personal device in your own language is quite transformative and simple when you think about it, and it's for a customer. And I think when we think about customers and stuff, I know Pietro has some views on in making sure that we design systems and processes around people and you know, I'd love to hear some success stories that you've had at Rome, Pietro.
Yeah, absolutely. People is key in any kind of success story, because they are exactly the element that make a program or just a single task a success and successful story. I would like to start also from what Arun mentioned before. There is a digital transformation before, even in some cases, even before COVID, and some kind of digital transformation lesson learned after COVID or during COVID era. What I can see before COVID as any kind of transformation, for us, the transformation started from a pain, from a challenge. Before 2017, we are not, as an airport, we are not performing so well in terms of quality of services for the passenger. So the key priority of the board was, okay, we should improve this. To improve this, we identified a master plan cross business unit that involved all the different company based on two different concrete action. First of all, open the data and create a unique view of the different pillars of data. And then coming back to Tijen, in the airport, in other industry, I didn't see all the different technology and sensor that we could have a leverage on the airport. It's really, really, really a big stuff, a bunch of technology and sensor that we can use. The second pillar of the transformation was, in order to improve and achieve the quality of service, excellence of quality of service for passenger, was we should move from a reactive way of seeing those data to a real-time and proactive way of manage the airport space. Infrastructure airport seems to be a static way of item to be managed. It's absolutely wrong. It's absolutely one of the most dynamic area to be managed. If we think about infrastructure in a steady way, we are not doing our job. We are not leveraging on what we can do. So starting from these two pillars, 5 years ago, before COVID, we defined our master plan to achieve. We aim to be the best airport for quality of services, and we achieved this. But this create and this have a lot of different change agent and change management approach for people, for way of doing business, because as mentioned Mark, we are not a greenfield. We are a brownfield airport. Each kind of transformation should be done in a, I don't want to say a buzzword, bimodal approach, but it's the real time, it's the real life, because we should run processes as the stakeholder know, but in the same time, we should think and test a new way of doing process and analyze this in terms of real-time output. This was not easy, but the only way to do this successful was to have the people engaged, not the people doing tasks. The people engaged on the target, on the aim, on the mission. This totally different approach. As a pain point, as you can say, is the first of all, okay, we do this for years. Why we should change? Also with the regulatory and non-regulatory aspect, with government stakeholder, with all the different stuff. But we did, and how we did, as mentioned, with a clear target, with a common mission, a common master plan, with a true engagement and passion of people, leveraging on something that was so known in the airport industry, that was the failure approach. Failure doesn't mean crash. Failure doesn't mean we should put at risk the passenger. But failure means we are trying to do something in a different way with a proper level of risk, because I know what I need to achieve. And the last point was, that is one of the most important things that also we used during the COVID era. The innovation shouldn't be a way of doing meeting. The innovation should be a way of thinking, doing something else.
Thinking differently, yes. And I think I just want to focus in on one point you mentioned when you were speaking, then, was that the actual data aspect of it. And it formed an important part of the springboard to progress through your projects. And what would be interesting to learn is what data sets did you find most useful in developing that?
Okay, if I may say, all the different data we discovered. The first phase of the master plan was discovering all the different pillars and try to correlate them, because the different business unit they had their vision of data that has 100% right, 100% the way of doing business, 100% the way to measure KPI. But what we recognized after creating an open data approach, putting together all the data, there's some kind of aspect, some view of data provided by the operational guys was absolutely fantastic for the marketing guys and vice versa. We discovered that a bunch of operation data was used by the marketing guys to do, for instance, some new stuff with the retailers, and vice versa. Some information coming from the retailer has been used by the operational guys to, for instance, plan properly the infrastructure, or for instance, to think a different way to move the infrastructure in a brownfield approach while we were doing a new infrastructure or building something fresh. Okay, so this was something absolutely fantastic, and also something that each week till now we try to discover something and create value from this.
Yeah, I always often find the discovery part of projects is always the most mind-blowing, but also the most fascinating. Yeah, because you could just everyone has a preconception about something, and they think it's this. When you actually then see the data, and you're like, oh wow, okay, how wrong was I? But I've learned from this, so it's really, really good. And I think you raise a good point about thinking differently and approaching things differently. And I'd like to bring Rashid into the conversation about how the pandemic has affected change across the industry and changed mindsets, and so has COVID changed how you prioritize investment in digitizing the airport environment?
Yes, Matt, definitely, indeed. I mean, among many things that the pandemic have changed across the globe, it has definitely changed and shuffled the way that we as an industry, operate, and how do we basically prioritize, or we need to prioritize, our digital investments. The pandemic have basically taught us, to ensure that we are able to sustain our business even during difficult times. And today we're looking to have basically more focused investments with value realization, of course, when it comes in the aspect of digital investments, and how do we need to prioritize our investments as well. So what we're doing here is we're working closely with our core corporate functions or business functions to identify the business challenges and have a clear problem statements that we need to work towards it. And the moment that you are able to identify those business challenges and create the problem statement, at that point of time, it will enable you to choose basically the right, best fit technology that will address the business challenge. And this is what we're, this is how we basically have changed the way we operate between our, digital functions and the core functions. What we're doing is we're creating different working groups between the digital functions and separately with different business functions, and come up with challenges that the business is facing based on the, of course, corporate direction, and as well how we as digital function are able to help them to address those challenges and overcome those challenges, of course, achieve the sole objective of the corporate objectives.
No, that's great. Thank you. I think it's you mentioned innovation and obviously pushing things differently, and that's you make some interesting points, which is really good. And I think we definitely have an innovation expert on our panel today with Aaron. So I'd like to bring Aaron into this conversation. So Aaron, what's your thoughts on prioritizing investment for digitalization at the airport, considering that you are the custodian of the innovation lab, so the hub of everything, I would imagine?
Yeah, Matt, for us, when we say digital transformation, finally it has to result in some kind of business transformation also. So one thing what a pandemic has taught us is, whatever we do, it has put a change in such a big way, and the success of how I could measure the success. For example, the regulations were changing so vast, so frequently, and I know India being such a large country, right? There were regulations at a state level, right? So the changes were very dynamic. So those interventions, what we did, technological interventions, some had a larger share of the technology. Sometimes they had a smaller share of the technology. But at the end of the day, when the passengers flow started increasing, right? At some point in time, we even reached almost 80% of what pre-COVID level was. When we were able to reach to that stage, how as an airport we bounced back, and we were able to carry forward the operations seamlessly was a measure of success for us. So hence I would say that the way we measure digital transformation is finally how as a business we change and how we were able to bounce back from the pandemic and continue our operations. That's the key measure for us. So hence anything what we had done, some of the solutions had a very I would say very less technology intervention, and some had quite a large, right? You've taken a totally paperless journey, a touch-free journey, etc., which had a larger intervention of technology, or to another level, where you just put a shield in front of a counter or a security agent, which does not probably have anything to do with the technology rather, right? So, but at the end of the day, all of these things as accumulation, how did it transform the way we work, and how did passengers felt that they are safe when they are traveling through this airport in large numbers, and which all resulted in the numbers at the end of the day, how much traffic increased and how effectively we were able to manage that. So that is one of the biggest success factor for us. Of course, the other part is, within the organization, I totally agree with the panelists. When we started our journey sometime back, not now, even before COVID, one of the important changes what we have seen within the organization is the digital quotient within the organization, and which has resulted directly in the way we are handling the data. So today we have in-house employees who has been trained on analyzing the data and seeing the data through their own lens in which they operate. It could be finance, it could be security, it could be technical department, etc., etc. So now there are people trained within the organization who are able to read this data and make an inference and make some new statements from the data. So this is one of the major benefit what we have seen. So this will definitely influence us in the way we are going to run our future investments. Which will be again focused at the end of the day, how that is directly going to affect my business. So that will become the primary key for us.
Thank you. I think Tidjane's was nodding all the way through that. Have you got anything to add to the prioritizing investment or any kind of thing points raised by Aaron?
Sure. So working with our airport customers across the world, we did see that the priorities changed. Before COVID, the initiatives were targeting capacity management, digitization to increase that and optimize it. During pandemic, the needs for creating healthier and safer environments for people was high priority. Solutions such as touchless and biometrics, and some of them are here to stay. And post-pandemic, where we see the passenger volumes going up again, capacity again is a high priority, along with net zero goals, finding new non-aeronautical revenue sources, and physical and cyber security. So what we've learned again is that the airports need to be nimble, flexible, and resilient, And digital transformation is a way to achieve this. And because things will change again, and driving priority changes for airports too. And smart buildings are a logical place to start the digital transformation, because buildings are big assets for airports. And also they are digitally connected structures that combine optimized building and operational automation with intelligent space management to enhance occupant experience, productivity, reduce cost, and mitigate physical and cybersecurity risks.
Yeah, that's really useful. And you mentioned, digital transformation, obviously technology, and something as simple as at Luton we used COVID as an opportunity to roll out more digital screens rather than physical signs. As we all experienced, the rules were changing more frequent than perhaps we liked. So it's just a simple thing as putting up screens that you can easily change. It's to all the way up as transforming infrastructure and introducing augmented reality, that Mark nicely touched on. And I think, it was an interesting perspective. So I think, as I've mentioned, Mark, do you have a thought on how you would prioritize investment in perhaps a post-COVID world?
Sure. So I can make you an example based on our work in our Greenfield Airport in Noida, India. So what we have done from the beginning is we've set up a clear digital strategy, which defines obviously in which direction we want to go, and which is interlinked with the overall strategy of the company. And based on that, we set up an implementation strategy, which explains in detail what we want to do. Now, even then, you could be overwhelmed by the sheer mass of topics which you could focus on. And usually you've got a lot on your table and you haven't got the time to do it. So how do you prioritize correctly? And what we have come up with a framework, basically, which has a strong focus on the airport's value streams. So we really start off by understanding our key value streams. How large are they in proportion to each other? Because that already gives like a very good perspective on where are we actually earning money? Where does it really pay off to invest into digitalization? So based on that, understanding the key value streams, we then look at different business challenges, and we look at the business challenges similar like Rashid has said. We look at finding the most promising business challenges, and we always hold them. We basically check them or cross-check them with our 3E checklist. 3E checklist is basically, is it going to pay into efficiency? Is it going to pay into earnings or into experience? Now, ideally, it pays into all three. If not, best case 2 or 1, but that really helps them to prioritize accordingly and say, okay, that's why we're going to be focusing on this topic and not that. And if you look back at the example which I brought before regarding Google Indoor Live View, that's a perfect example which pays into all 3Es. So you've got a better experience for the passenger, you've got potentially more revenue, so higher earnings, and you've also increased efficiency because people are finding what they're looking for instead of having to ask staff for an example, or walk in the wrong way, or queuing if they wouldn't have to. So that's for me a good example. I think that's what's so important in the time we're living in, is that we really focus on the right topics. There's so much buzzwords around, there's so much noise, and that's why we opted for that framework, which really helps us in our daily work.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've probably fell victim to a few buzzwords today. So, thank you for that. And I think that's really good. And it was an interesting thing where you've mentioned experience, revenue, and efficiency, where the three key aspects of that. And it's I think that's quite useful. I'll certainly take that one away and share that internally. So thank you so much for that, Mark. And I actually think it's probably right about the right time now. You mentioned prioritization and how you've gone about it, building that framework, is to find out the results of our poll that we launched at the beginning of the session around two very defined questions. So one was which of these are your key digital transformation priorities? And then the relevant timescales for those, 12, 18, and 24. So I'd like to bring back Holly to give us the results. So Holly, tell us the news.
Yes, sure. So in answer to your first question on the priorities, 15% answered that it was ESG, environmental, social, and governance. 19% said touchless passenger processing, and then the majority of 67% said operational efficiency and innovation. And then moving on to the second question on timescales, the majority said 12 months, so quite soon. 23% said 18, and 35% said 24 months. So it's kind of like the earlier time frame and then the later time frame, which were most popular. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to bring Pietro onto this one. So you've spoken about efficiencies and given that the fact that poll has come up with 12 months, which is quite soon, may suggest people are already on that journey. Thoughts?
I think that the answer has been in some cases adjusted due to the pandemic or post-pandemic era. Let me try to explain why. If we think about a common way of prioritization, okay, you should have a master plan, you should have a lot of different pillars within the idea, you should have benchmark, you should match this with the regulatory aspect, people expectation, and so far and so on, and you move to your way of prioritization. That worked fine, worked fine for years and will work fine for years, okay? What we just learned from the COVID area is that the provocative question is prioritization the way we do business or business transformation for the airport? The answer was half and half. We should prioritize because I think we should have our top 3 agenda topics, but we should also think how prioritization should be involved in a pandemic area, and even more in something that is not is uncharted. Okay, so the 12 months is quite. I'm feeling quite comfortable within 12 months because each of us know that in the last 24 months we had no time to do something more than weeks-based project. We should react fast. We should react aligned with the regulatory, aligned with the health, aligned with not only country code or rules, but within, let me say, pan-area rules. And this totally changed the way of thinking about transformation. On the other side, this also gives us another point of view that was, if I hopefully will not have more a pandemic area, now we are in a war era, but again, we hope this will close soon. How we can leverage on the challenge and positive stress that we got from the pandemic area to make faster my plan and my transformation plan. So who will be my COVID agent within the company? How I can leverage on him or on them to just test before and prioritize better my agenda? So I think this is the range of question, or this is the thought that we should put on a table, and how we again come back to people and not to technology to address this, because in any case the people is the key and the core path or the core element of our path. We should share from ADR, for instance, the pandemic area give us a lot of lessons learned, but first of all was create a new way of doing innovation, create a new way of thinking about innovation, and in any case put innovation as not a target of what we do okay, but put as a means that it's quite different. It's totally quite different. And also it's a matter of culture.
Yeah, definitely, because different countries will have different approaches and different mindsets to innovation and everything. So yeah, I completely agree. And we've actually, I know the session is, I'm just going to break with the session, but I know the session is supposed to end in another 4 minutes. And we do have the option to continue beyond this because we do have quite a few questions from the audience that I'd really like to have the opportunity to do it. But I know 2 of our panelists may have to disappear. They are very much in demand elsewhere. But before they do, Aaron and Mark, I think that I'd love to get your thoughts on the results of this poll. So obviously 70% of people have said that operational efficiency and innovation are their most focus. And then it's quite a balance between the 12 and 24 months. Any thoughts between yourselves?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, if you see that, between 12 and 24 months, it's almost equally divided in terms of, how much. So we would generally, we could put it in a broader bucket of, all these things has to be, looked in a span of 2 years. And naturally, operational efficiency, it's a very big world as such, right? So many things can get into operational efficiency. The need of the hour for any airport, at this situation is bounce back and take back the lost revenues, lost roads, etc., etc. So naturally that will be the priority for in any airport across the world. And I agree with Petro. Like we all hope that we are out of pandemic, but we should also be so agile that touch wood, in case any such situation comes back again, how agile we are to go back and again bounce back. So our strategies and our plan should be in such a way that we should be ready to face any such eventuality. So I totally agree that hence operational efficiency in many ways will become a priority. Whatever we do today, how differently we can do, and the different way of doing it, how resilient it is, how agile it is, those things becomes very important. Hence any transformation towards that will become more priority, whether it has a technology intervention, it's more of a process changes, whatever it is, right? That becomes more priority, definitely.
That's great, thank you so much. And just for anyone that does need to drop off, before you do, because I know we've got 2 minutes, I thank you so much for your contributions today. It really has been insightful and valuable, and I'm sure the audience would agree. And please drop off whenever you need, and we'll continue. But I will, with the 1 minute or so we've got left. Mark, have you got any views on the poll today?
Well, actually,
we appear to be having some technical issues with Mark.
It looks as if he was whisked away to his next meeting. So obviously we'll leave him there. But yeah, Aaron and Mark, thank you so much for your contributions today. We really appreciate it, and I can't wait to catch up soon and see how you've been progressing through your many projects that you've probably got lined up. So thank you again.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Oli. Thanks everyone for hosting us today here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right, so Rashid, I know in your in one of the previous discussions we were having is you mentioned operational excellence. I think you're primed to contribute as to why you think that 70% of our audience decided to say that operational efficiency and innovation was the most important.
Well, I mean, again, it is very surprising to see the huge difference between touchless passenger processing and operational efficiency. However, what I believe and why the result came in this manner, because when you talk about touchless processing technology, it's very pricey, and today the industry is really reluctant when it comes to investments. So maybe there are some financial issues which the industry as a whole is facing. This is one, but again, touchless passenger processing is only one part when it comes to operational efficiency. And end of the day, if you focus on this, you're adding up to the operational efficiency. So operational efficiency really covers, the whole operation, or covers the operation as a whole, and which I believe people should really focus on operational efficiency and innovation more than just taking bits and pieces from the whole, from the airport operations. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think I would very much love to hear what Tidjane thinks on the timescales around this. And is this something that you've seen in the industry?
Yes, I mean, looking at the timelines, 39% in 12 months, I think, if I quote that correctly, is showing sense of urgency for digitization. And the fact that, the highest percentage thinks that operational efficiency is a priority is telling me that cost reduction is still on the minds of the airports, and that is going to be a priority. And that is something that could be achieved, especially on the buildings, assets, and operations management side. Things like maintenance could be digitized so that people can focus on taking care of the passengers and staff and stakeholders. So it is definitely in line with what we are seeing. And it is also showing that a natural progression that, what is high priority now will be taken care of, and will build the building blocks for future of airports.
Yeah, it's almost like what Aaron was saying earlier about the accept, adjust, and adapt is almost a new way of thinking. And I think that Pietro as well mentioned that it's all about mindset. So did Mark. And Pietro, do you have a view on how close the timescales were? So 39% said 12 months, 36% said 24 months. Do you agree with what Aaron was saying, is that actually 12 months should form part of a larger plan?
If we think a plan that should not only have an action, but should also include measure and reaction on what we did, is absolutely right. Because in an industry like airport, we have some action that is measurable daily based or even hourly based. But due to the fact that we have different kind of passenger, different kind of personas, and different behavior, in order to be sure that the measurement is right and is not only due to the fact of specific flight or specific kind of behavior for that subset of people, we should have a proper time to cover all the different personas that we should have, and to measure this transformation or this innovation within all of them. Otherwise, we just created an advantage or improvement for some of them. We should say, okay, we celebrate after 3 days.
I'd love to celebrate after 3 days and then just go, yes, we'll move on.
Exactly. So I'm quite aligned with Rashid on 24 months, not for the pure action, but for the observation and reaction if needed.
Yeah, Rashid, it looks as if you've got something to add to that. Have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, just one last thing that I would like to add here. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't really, time does not matter here, because again, going back to the first point that we spoke about, when it comes to digital transformation, it's about a cultural change. Yes, I do understand that there is an urgency from everyone to be up to speed. However, what we need to focus more is to get the foundation right, because you could have an urgency and you can change quickly, but you need to ensure that you are sustaining your digital transformation. So do not really focus on the time, be more results oriented than time oriented, and then things will come by its merit when your foundation is right.
Yeah, and that actually goes nicely with one of our audience questions, actually, who we've said about time isn't necessarily the important indicator here, but one of our audience has asked, can you share any KPIs you've used to measure success? of any digital transformation projects. Rashid, if you want to kick us off with that one. Any KPIs you'd like to share with us that measure your success?
Going back to the foundation, so what you need to focus on: get the right foundation, get the right working group, ensure that you have the right talent, in order to accelerate your digital transformation, and then look at the challenges, create your problem statements, address those problem statements, and then put the KPIs based on that problem statement that achieve, 1, 2, 3, 4 that you really wanted to achieve. Based on that, you will be able to understand, did I achieve my initial objective, or the objective that the management was really looking further to achieve, or not?
Yeah, so it's important to set your aims first, and then
yes,
deliver from there, and then check back to see whether you've delivered what you've intended. And
exactly.
I think that's very clear. And I think I saw Pietro nodding, and Tijan. Do you wanna Tijan? Do you wanna jump in there with anything?
Yes, sure. So I think the question was about particular KPIs.
Yes.
Working with our airport customers, we do have well-defined KPIs that we try to meet. For example, when we talk about energy optimization, energy usage, what is being reduced, and which directly feeds into reducing the energy bills for airports is one of the KPIs. And also the cost of reactive maintenance versus digitized preventative maintenance. That's another KPI, and those are clear winnings on the accounting.
Perfect. Yeah, Pietro, do you have anything to add?
Only adding one point. We should, starting also from the beginning, what Rashid mentioned about foundation, and what we discussed at the beginning with the different stakeholders that we have in the airport industry. We should think of something that is similar to a circular KPI. What does it mean? If we think about a vertical KPI for each company, for each corporate, we are doing perfect plan for ourselves. We are not working for the industry. The airport industry is absolutely a cooperative way of doing business. So one of the most important things is, if we have in front of us the customer satisfaction KPI, we recognize it internally that the only way to achieve one KPI for customer was to connect all the different stakeholder KPI. This is why I call it circular KPI within this KPI. If we think only one-on-one with the own corporate, doesn't work.
Yeah, so collaboration and seeing the reason or linked reason as to behind, let's say, for example, customer satisfaction which is low, you can link that to different parts of the business using data and what we were originally talking about to kind of influence what KPIs you follow and which ones add value. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think the only thing what I found quite interesting, and I think this is especially relevant to what this discussion panel is about, is considering how low touchless passenger processing got on the poll. And do we think that it's maybe had its day, or do you think it was mainly a focus of COVID? Do you see it moving forward as important? The audience seems to not think that. Tijan, do you want to kick us off?
I think it is. It depends on the context we are talking about, because touchless passenger processing will come up in conversations and initiatives pre-pandemic, and it really gained speed and importance during pandemic. So if we are talking about touchless processing in terms of the COVID and spread of it, it may not be as relevant at the moment. But it also contributes significantly into operational efficiency, right? Processing passengers faster so that airports can increase the throughput. So I think in that sense, it may still be a high priority, but not in the sense of preventing spread of pathogens.
Yeah, and I think what we may have stumbled upon here is, and this is just my view on it, but it might be that with efficiency innovation taking the forefront here, I think maybe touchless is now part of operational efficiency and innovation as that. So it may not be a particular focus, but it might have rolled into that other category, which would be very, very interesting. So I know that some of our panelists have got places to go, and I thank you so much for all of your contributions. I certainly learned something myself, which is always a bonus to walk away from. Every day is a school day. So thank you so much for your contributions, for your time today. And I'm sure the audience has appreciated your insights and sharing of your experiences. So thank you so much. I'd like to draw this panel session to a close. Unfortunately, because I think I could talk about this forever, and I look back to Pietro's nodding there. I think we all are. So yes, I will hand back to Holly to wrap us up there.
Thank you so much, Matt. And yeah, thank you very much to our numerous panelists for this session, Tijan, Rashid, Mark, Pietro and Aaron. What a fantastic session. And like Matt said, I'm sure you could have gone on for another half an hour. Thank you also to the audience for their questions. There were some really interesting ones that came up. Unfortunately, you didn't have time to get through all of them. So, do make sure that you reach out to the panelists via the platform so you can continue the discussion. Also, make sure you head over to the Honeywell exhibitor stand on the sponsors and exhibitors page, and there'll be someone there to answer any other questions for Tijan and the team that you may have. Next up, though, we have a panel session on the race to net zero, which starts in just about 15 minutes time. So you have time to grab yourself a coffee, and we'll see you in the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.